Hey guys, my name is Grant. Welcome to Apologetics 101. Today we're going to be talking about the moral argument and why even though atheists can be good people, they don't actually believe they can. Come on, atheists, believe in yourself. Okay, so a couple of things to remember before we actually get into the argument and I explain what I just said. So number one, if you remember from our logic and reason video, which was our last video, if you haven't watched it, I would suggest you go back and take a look at that. Arguments are simply organizational tools. So when we call it the moral argument, that doesn't mean that you have to be interested in debate or arguing with somebody for this video to be applicable to you. This is simply a thought that is laid out in clear premises from which a conclusion follows so that we can assess and discuss all of that together easily. Number two, and this is probably the most important thing you need to get from this video. This argument revolves around a simple thought, that a person cannot be good or evil for that matter if there is no God. Now pause. What I did not just say is that a person cannot be good if they don't believe in God, but that if there is no moral lawgiver, there can be no objective moral laws. And so whatever they do is not actually good or evil. All right? That takes us to the actual argument itself. Now, there's more than one version of any of these formal arguments, but the one we'll be utilizing is a very common one, and it comes from the apologist William Lane Craig, who's one of my favorites. So it goes like this. Premise one, if God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. Premise two, objective moral values and duties do exist. Therefore, conclusion, God exists. Now, this can seem confusing on its face, but let's take a few moments and actually discuss the premises. So premise one, if God does not exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. In premise one, we need to highlight a couple of words and phrases that you'll need to understand before we move forward. The first one is objective. It's defined as something which is not influenced by personal feelings or opinions. So objective is something that is not influenced by personal feelings or opinions, but exists outside of those things. The second thing we need to define is what moral values and duties are. This is simply a technical way to talk about good and bad, right and wrong. Okay? So without God, are there things that are good or bad, right or wrong, regardless of humans' opinions? For example, if everyone on earth happened to agree that the taking of innocent life was morally justified, would it still be wrong? Is it wrong regardless of the majority's opinion? From the atheist or materialist standpoint, we are nothing more than evolved creatures just like bees or baboons. And in the animal kingdom, it's not morally wrong for one baboon to kill another, or for a queen bee to kill all the other female bees. No one is outraged when these things happen because there is no morality attached to killing in the animal kingdom. So if we are just differently evolved animals, then there is nothing which makes it objectively wrong for humans to do likewise, right? This is what Richard Dawkins means when he says, "Nature is not cruel, only pitiless and indifferent." This is one of the hardest lessons for humans to learn. We cannot admit that things might be neither good nor evil, neither cruel nor kind, but simply callous and indifferent to all suffering, lacking all purpose, which is a depressing way to look at life. But without God, we are just highly evolved primates flying around on a speck of dust in an endless universe, and no murder or rape is truly wrong. No act of kindness or generosity is truly good. Everything simply exists. Now, once again, let me exclaim, this does not mean that people who don't believe in God are unable to do good things. It does not mean that people who don't believe in God automatically become murderers or rapists. It simply means that if there truly is no God, the claim that something is good or bad, right or wrong, is no more than an opinion because the claim has nothing upon which it rests, no objective point of reference. But this brings us to premise two. The good news is that objective morals and values do exist. This is a point on which almost everyone wants to agree. No one accepts that the rape or a child molestation are morally ambiguous. They are absolutely wrong. But if there are objective moral values and duties, there must be a foundation for them, and that foundation is what we call God. Now, some common arguments against premise one, that if God does not exist, objective morals and values do not exist, are things like, well, what about the prosperity of the species? If something prospers or harms the human species, couldn't that be a source of objective moral values and duties? And the answer is no, because prosperity is a subjective word. It's an opinion word. So what you think is prosperous for the species may be different than what I think is prosperous for the species. Think about the Avengers and Thanos, right, in Endgame. Thanos believes that in order for individuals to have better, more fulfilled, happier lives, there need to be less people on Earth. But the Avengers believe that it's their duty to protect human life at all costs. On the materialist, atheistic view, these are simply two competing opinions with no objective right or wrong in the middle. Another argument is the well-being of conscious creatures can give us objective moral values and duties. But again, well-being is subjective. And what would make it immoral to allow some conscious creatures to suffer so that others could prosper? Who gets to say that's right or wrong, and where does the objective reference point come from? Finally, some might say, well, then how does God follow from that? Why must it be God? And I would say really one major key point. It's that morality is a rational enterprise. This is why when we argue for an objective moral landscape, we're not arguing for absolute morality, which is things that are always right or wrong in every given circumstance. For instance, in the case of protecting innocent life, it may become necessary to take a life of a terrorist with a bomb or a person with a gun. Morality requires reason. But human reason does not give us an objective reference point, only one opinion among many. So there must be a rational being from which morality comes unequivocally. That would be what most people describe as God, that God is the God of the Bible. But that's for later on. So with that, thanks for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time.